Serious? Are you serious? Well, we've got some information now as it relates to Syria's President Assad, who's been hiding down in a bunker deep, deep, deep there in Damascus. And we know that he would already be gone had it not been for the strong ally, Vladimir Putin of Russia and the Iranians. Now, there's been a change in some of the diplomatic discussion. Russia says they're now open to Assad's ouster after Syria goes through a transition, according to the Russian diplomats. Russia has made clear to the Western nations that it has no objection to Syrian President Bashar Assad stepping down as part of a peace process in a softening of its publicly stated staunch backing of Assad ahead of talks in New York, according to diplomats. Now, Russia, like Iran, has been a firm ally of Assad and is intervening militarily on his behalf against anti-government forces in a 5-year civil war that has claimed more than 250,000 lives. Both Russia and Iran have long insisted Assad's fate could be decided in a nationwide vote. Now, Western powers, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and others reluctantly agreed to allow Assad to remain in place during a transition period, a compromise that has opened the door to a shift on the part of Russia, according to Western diplomats. What you've got is a move. What you've got is a move now that will end up with Assad going, said the senior Western diplomat, according to the conditions of anonymity would not be revealed. Quote, and the Russians have got to point privately where they accept that Assad will have gone by the end of his transition. They're just not prepared to say that publicly. Now, several other Western officials confirm the diplomat's remarks. The United States, Russia, along with Iran and Saudi Arabia, and major European and Arab powers have agreed on a roadmap for a nationwide ceasefire to have 6 months of talks between Assad's government and the opposition on forming a unity government to begin in January and to have elections within 18 months. Now, there will be a third round of talks in New York on Friday, at which U.S. Secretary of State John F. Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and over a dozen other ministers will aim to keep up the momentum to get a deal to end this war. U.S. and European officials say that Assad cannot run in any elections organized along the lines major powers agreed in the two previous ministerial meetings in Vienna. Now, despite the narrowing, so in other words, Assad will not be allowed to run. He'll remain in power till after the transition government is established. Once the elections are taken, he will not be on the ballot, and then he must go away. Now, gradually the gap is narrowing, but there is still a big gap. My question is here, how in the world are you going to have a ceasefire in a nation like Syria when there are 14 different armies there? And ISIS doesn't care about a ceasefire. ISIS could care less. They're not interested in a ceasefire and some type of governmental election. ISIS is trying to take the country themselves and impose Sharia law. And Russia doesn't want that. Obviously, Russia doesn't want that. The Iranians don't even want that because they don't believe in the eschatology theology of the ISIS murderers. Assad certainly is hated by ISIS, so he don't want that. And Turkey, they're buying oil from ISIS, so, what happens to ISIS? My question is, even if the Free Syrian Army and Assad's army can call a ceasefire and a peace, what about Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra? What about Iran, the Russians, the United States, the British, the French, the Germans? Everybody stop shooting? Turkey, the Kurds, does everybody stop? And what about ISIS? They could care less. I mean, really, to be honest with you, I think this plan has no chance of working at all until you deal with ISIS, radical Islamic jihad. Until you deal with ISIS, nothing else really matters, because these guys are going to keep killing and murdering and butchering all across the country until somebody stops them. They're the real enemy of Syria. And they all should unify to wipe out ISIS, and then call for a new elections and a new government. But until you kill off ISIS, till you destroy that regime, nothing else is going to work. But I am praying that it does come to an end. And I wish to God this would work. Anything to work, to stop the murdering. But even if there's a ceasefire between Assad and his forces and against the Free Syrian Army that are backed by the United States, even if those all could agree to a ceasefire, it doesn't stop ISIS. And so it's just a wild, wild west there. It's really sad. Pray for the folks there. It's just disastrous. Pray. It all happened because of the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring was orchestrated by the Obama administration. Called every one of these nations to chaos. And that's what we got. Let's pray.